Springtime has come to Western Washington. Welcome to episode 28 of the Healing Hut. I'm doing something very unusual today, is that I'm doing a remake of my episode. I had my videos that I had taken while I was under construction and I had sewn them all together using my software to make a video. And there's something weird that happens that I can see it beautifully, and then when I upload it to YouTube, it's black. But show you our spring is here. This little yellow thing here is called, it's Western skunk cabbage. It puts out an odor, if you're not familiar with it, that's very similar to skunk smell. And we live next to a wetland. We own 2 acres of a wetland, which tells us that we can't do anything on it, be against the law. But we have a big flock, I don't know what you would call it, a skunk cabbage, you can see, and it puts out this very strong odor. And that's the first sign of spring, because our bedroom is right there, is the smell of skunk cabbage, which does smell a lot like skunk. There's a cottage waiting on me. I'm going to show you, if you can see my arm. I had reconstructive shoulder surgery 48 hours ago, and working on the cottage, I had to plan to get overhead things done, because I won't be able to use this left arm at all much for the next 2 months or 3 months. I hope by the time it's warm and I'm doing stonework that my arm will be okay. I think it will be. So I focused on overhead things, including the ceiling. I have a 20-foot ceiling at the peak. Very hard to work on it, so I rented a scissor lift to do my overhead work. And I had the scissor lift for a week. Because of my cancer and my fatigue, I usually work no more than 2 or 3 hours at a time. But during that week, leading up to when I had my surgery, I had the scissor lift and I had to work like a dog. And I'm going to show you the ceiling, and it's exactly the ceiling I was trying to get. Remember, I'm trying to reproduce a very old stone barn that's been turned into a house. That was my original dream and plan. So here it goes. That's what it looks like. I had to put a fan in because it's warm up in the loft. Those boards that run horizontally, they come from my stash of wood I got from a 110-year-old community center that was torn down. And my process was to pull the wood out of the pile first, and it was all dirty and muddy. It's been there for 3 years. Power wash it, pull the nails out, then cut the tongue and grooves off to make roughly 6-inch wide boards to go horizontally. Then vertically are poles that came up from near the British Columbia border. We're in a big berry growing area, and blueberries, raspberries, what else? Lots of berries. And they use these poles to hold up their berry plants. And then about every 4 or 5 years, the farmer was telling me they have to pull everything out of the ground. They want to plant new bushes, like blueberry bushes, but they can't with the poles in the way. So they have to pull the poles up, and then they just buy new poles and put them in the ground, and I got these poles. So that's the look I was looking for. Just imagine, especially if you look at the Tudor style in England with the white stucco background. This is not stucco, of course. This is a special vapor barrier insulation made for cathedral ceilings, so that's why the white is. So I've already shown you my bathroom is done. The bathroom doors are done. I got the world's tallest shower curtain for this very tall shower. It's dark in there, I know. Things are all pushed to this end because I was using that lift, which was a godsend, because I spent a week up there in that very high place. And without the lift, it would have been a disaster. So that's mostly what I've been doing for this episode. So the difference was on my original video, I had me actually on the lift doing work. Trust me, I did it. I was up there. I just have lost all that video. I want to show you where I'm at. The other thing, I don't know what kind of work I can do in the next few weeks. I got to fix this circuit down here. I have a three-way light, and I think I had it wired correctly the first time, and then there was a short, and I rewired it. And then I found out the short wasn't even in the switches. It was in a plug-in, and fixed it. But now I got to rewire it back to where it was. I got to build stairs. I'll be doing that this spring, I think. I got to think what I can do with one arm. I think I can do that with one arm. I'm going to put down baseboards to give it a little bit more finished look down here. And I'm going to use some of the same old wood, I believe, to create baseboards for that. There's some other things I can do with one hand. I need to come back and clean off some of these stones, things like that. The other big project I've started this time around is building a sink. I have this weird thing about sinks. I have looked and looked and looked at sinks, just like for the ceiling. I bet I studied 100 ceilings of old houses in Europe. The thing I like the best are thatched homes, stone thatched homes, and when you look up inside, you see thatching. And that's the look I wanted. And even when the county would not let me put a thatch roof on this building because of their fear of forest fires, which, talking to the thatcher, and I did have a thatcher lined up in Virginia from the UK that grows his own water reed for thatching, that they have more resistant to fires than most roofs, like asphalt roofs, but it didn't matter. The county said I couldn't do that. So I could have bought thatch from him and done a thatch ceiling in here, but that does raise a little bit concern, being inside dry, and I'm going to have this giant fireplace I'm going to be building next winter, and I didn't like that idea too much. I did think it increased my risk for fire, and the county maybe wouldn't have accepted that if I had thatch ceiling. So anyway, this is the ceiling I have. It's the one I wanted, and hopefully you can appreciate it. I know it's hard to show Americans things because they don't get it, and they think it looks, I was going to say cheap, and actually it is cheap, because the other option, what the architect could put in, is doing tongue and groove cedar over that entire ceiling, and that would have been at least $6,000 or $7,000. Whereas the money I've invested in this ceiling is that white stuff comes in big rolls. I've probably spent $600 for that. The wood is basically free, so all that was free. Labor, I had to rent the scissor lift for about $800. So now we're talking about $1,500 to $2,000 I have in the ceiling. If I used cedar, tongue and groove, it'd been more like $6,000, $7,000, maybe $8,000. And then plus on top of that, I still had to rent the lift probably for about a month. So I'm going to show you the sink. I was starting to talk about sinks, and I have this sink fetish, really liking old sinks. And I might end up buying a modern sink, but I did build one sink for the cottage. It was just too big. And I'm going to show you the one I've been working on. I've built the form. And when I'm talking about this right now, I'll put up a photo of what I'm trying to reproduce, a stone sink I saw that was, I think it's for sale for several $1,000s. It's old, the one I was looking at. So I'm trying to reproduce it. This is the inside. It's just one big container. And I'm going to pour it in concrete and try to shape it. This thing down here is where this drain will fit. I had to create that model based on this drain very precisely for it to fit. So I might be able, if I can get somebody to help me mix up my concrete. My concrete, to save money again, I'm using stucco cement that was left over. And I bought probably $5 worth of gravel and mixed with it. And I'll put some sand in it and create the right recipe to make a little bit of stain I'll put in it to try to create a limestone color for the stone sink. And if it fails, I'll throw it away like I did my last one and end up buying one off the shelf. So that's what I've gotten done on this episode 28. I wish I could have showed you the work I was doing, but that video is lost forever, so it appears. I really appreciate you guys coming along. I'm trying to make a comment about multiple myeloma. I'm still in remission because I have quite a few multiple myeloma patients follow me. I'm on daratumumab, my only treatment right now, which is a monoclonal antibody that attacks the myeloma cells, and it's kept me in remission now for over 3 years, and side effects are quite low, so I'm doing pretty well. You know, the shoulder surgery, I tore up my shoulder the year before I developed multiple myeloma, so 8 years ago, when I was up in a 20-foot tree and with a chainsaw cutting this massive limb that I thought was going to fall straight down, but I didn't realize the limb was top heavy, and when I cut through it, it twisted and fell right on top of me. I'm trying not to fall off the ladder, but it pinched my arm. It tore my arm upwards and got it pinched, wedged, and I'm trying to get my arm out from under this giant, probably 200-pound limb to get down, and that's when first time I tore my rotator cuffs. And then there's 4 major tendons around the shoulder, and I tore 2 completely then, and they couldn't be fixed. And then working on the Cottage, I tore a 3rd one partially, and he was hoping he could fix that one, but unfortunately when he got in there the day before yesterday, the muscle was just too messed up to put sutures in. He did transpose my bicep, which it's complicated because the shoulder dynamics is now shifted. It was pinching a tendon that goes to my bicep, so we moved that over. So anyway, when this heals, go through some physical therapy, I hope I'll be back to normal. But the point I was going to make, I knew I was having trouble with shoulder problems for a while. But even 3 years ago, having surgery on my shoulder would not have been worth it, because my life expectancy was measured in months, and it wouldn't make sense to go through surgery and then 3 or 4 months of rehab and then to die from cancer. So it's, in a way, having surgery is a happy time, something to celebrate, that at least I think I'm going to live long enough to make this surgery worthwhile. I want to thank you so much for coming along. Sorry this is sort of weird this time, and I posted my video and everybody started saying, wait a minute, it's black. And then I spent probably several hours trying to debug it and figure out, and there's no way. I watched a lot of videos on what will cause that when you publish it to YouTube, that it goes black, and it suggests that there's some files that are missing, that are corrupted, and I'm sure when I cleaned out my hard drive on my camera, I delete those files. I really appreciate you guys coming along. I'm not going to say too much more, but I'm a writer, and I've written 10 books, or I'm writing my 10th book right now. I didn't ever want to write one about cancer. It's just too painful to go back through, but it's recommended I write one about my journey of cancer. And there's thousands and thousands of books like that out there. And I didn't want to do something other people have done. So I finished this book. I'm now edited it now. But it's a very candid look at cancer, and I'm telling the story somewhat of a satire at points, even trying to be humorous, funny. There are funny things about cancer, as far as, of course, hard things. But I've learned so much going back through this. It's been a cathartic for me of writing this story, going back through the last 7 years of my life. And the thing that it's really stood out with me, that the battle, I think this is true for most cancer patients and anybody that's had a tragedy in their life, that one of the biggest battles about going on and fighting is the feeling that you're significant. Because when something appears in your life as devastating, your career ends, you lose most of your friends, just due to circumstances. You know, I was in quarantine over 2 years, and I really lost virtually all of my friends. That you can't but help start to lose your feeling of significance. You know, you can't be strong and brave and and all these things anymore. You're this weakling. But that's the thing I discovered writing this book, of how important that area is of significance. Anyway, I'll talk more about that later. But again, I think my connection to what I was saying, thanks so much for coming along. Doing these videos, I do, maybe, I don't know, I have to ask Freud, maybe I do a little bit to feel like I have some significance somewhere. But I thank you so much for coming along. I'll see you next time. Hopefully next time I'll have a better video of the actual work I'll be doing in the next few months.